And I'm reading this thinking, kids aren't supposed to do this. Holy crap, Steve, what have you done here? And I'm starting to question my own morality. I'm reading this stuff, and it's pretty graphic. You don't hold back at all. But then when you think about that, well, it's natural. There's, like it or not, or be disturbed or not, which is the point, obviously. It's even disturbing for these kids who have to look back on all this, that's the natural course of these horny kids, that's literally their function down there, is to populate. So they're like, all right, screw it, I guess. Let's make the best of this. And what was that scene like for you to write? I mean, I guess you tapped in a lot of your romance background for that, and did you kind of need a shower afterwards, or?
No, I mean, it was kind of gross to write because they are kids. I mean, to be clear, they are like between 16 and 18 years old.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, still underage for most cases. But they're told they have to fornicate and they have to move around. They're not allowed to make pair bonds. But I believe that humans naturally will form pair bonds. And they did. I mean, they did what they had to do because, Mother was quite clear and the punishment was obvious what was going to happen if they didn't do her will.
Mm-hmm.
But all of them, except one, had somebody that they would default back to. And so the biggest thing about the orgy was them obviously breaking the pair bonds, where before, they would go off in the dark and nobody saw what they were doing. Yeah. But this time, and there were other factors that really kind of kicked it all off as far as, their diet. But also, I watched a documentary several years ago, and it was comparing sexual attitudes of the 70s to modern day. And what they had done was they had put a bunch of young adults, I mean, they were a little bit older than my kids in the story,
yeah,
in a completely dark room. There was absolutely zero light. And within about an hour, they were all having sex. The ones in the 70s. They did it again with the same age group in modern day. I mean, it was like 5-10 years ago now. And there was nothing. They sat and they talked. Nobody came on to anybody. Nobody, got undressed and said, hey, as long as we're in here. So, there was that aspect, bringing in the 70s. They did have a freer outlook on sex. Although for most of these characters, it was their first time in the cave.
Yeah.
So the romance definitely came into that, especially with Kevin. He's a rather sensitive person.
Yeah.
You had the jock who was not quite as sensitive about it. He was definitely down for, multiple partners.
Yeah.
But yeah, the orgy scene itself, I wasn't even sure it was going to happen. I mean, I knew it would happen. I just didn't know that I would put so much of it, on the page. But then I was like, well, okay, I kind of have to keep going because I have to explore their feelings. And yeah, it turned into quite a scene.
Yeah.
Probably the most
really
I've done since 7 Days in Benevolence.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that the story wouldn't have been the same without that scene, because like I said, for me, it was very unsettling, which is, of course, the point of that. And it just really exemplified what these poor kids are truly going through and what they're forced to do. And like you said, I mean, that's very interesting you mentioned about the documentary that you saw, because clearly that's just the way the kids back in the 70s would have reacted. I mean, what else are they supposed to do? They're going to explore what they have available to them and their options.
Yeah, and you got to consider too. I mean, they were down there for a long time before the orgy scene happened, and
right,
they had no form of entertainment other than somebody had a Bible and there was a couple paperback books somebody carried down there, but there was no TV, no radio, certainly no video games. So they had to do something, and
doesn't leave too many other options.
No, it doesn't.